One of the very first questions that I get asked when I start working with a new powerlifting athlete and I am setting up their training protocol and their nutrition protocol, I get asked one of two questions, if not both. One, when is my first cheat meal? And two, how many cheat meals do I get? And the answer to that question, especially if I just started working with you, and this is an answer that most people within the fitness industry are going to give anyone, and it's not the answer that anyone's looking for, but it's the one that you're going to get. And that is, it just depends. It is so dependent. There's so many different variables that come into play when we're talking about how someone's body is going to react to a new training regimen or a new nutrition regimen. Everyone's body is going to react completely different. And as a coach, if I've just started working with you, I need to get to know your body and how your body is going to react to things. Unless you are a high level athlete, you probably don't even know how your body is going to react, right? And you've been in your body your entire life. I'm just getting to know it. So there is a little bit of a learning curve there. However, when it comes to the nutrition protocols and determining those things and when a cheat meal is going to be required and it's going to be beneficial for you, one of the key things that a lot of people don't understand is you have to follow the nutrition plan that is already written out and eliminate as many unknown variables as possible. That way, me as your coach, I can really determine whether or not this particular game plan is going to be what we need long term. So with all that being said, it then becomes very clear how important it is to have a open and honest line of communication with your coach as it relates to both your training and your nutrition. So if our goal is to eliminate as many variables as possible, I can't coach to what I don't know. So it is so important that if you do fall off plan, let's say you went out and had pizza and beer, and your weigh-in is the next day, and our long-term goal is to cut weight for your meet, that way you can be more competitive in a lower weight class. And after a week of following the plan that I wrote out for you, if you do not tell me about all the variables, then I can't plan accordingly, right? So at least if you weigh in and you had pizza and beer the night before, I know that you're probably holding on to a lot of water weight from that. And I'll probably give it another extra couple days before I make any type of adjustments to your plan. So I'm not here to judge, but I am here to help. And my job as a coach is to keep you accountable and lay out the path for you to follow in order to reach your goals. However, sometimes we make a left turn, and that's okay. It's just so important that you communicate that with your coach. That way we can make the appropriate adjustments. So as I start to go down this path with my athletes, it's typically about a month before I make any type of like big adjustment or throw a cheat meal in there. And a month is a really good span of time for, again, me to see how your body's going to react to things. So the first week, maybe two, typically your caloric intake and your macro intake is going to look exactly the same regardless of what's programmed for that day. So whether it is a super heavy leg day or a lighter upper body work day or a rest day, I'm going to keep your macros exactly the same. And then as I start to, track your weight and track your intensity levels in the gym, track your performance, then I'm going to start to make some adjustments. So still not throwing a cheat meal in there just yet, but typically about 2 weeks in, I'll start to change the macro programming. So on your really heavy leg days, I'm going to increase those macros. On your upper body days or your less intense training days, I'll probably keep it at that baseline that we started with. And then on the rest days, I'm going to lower that caloric intake a little bit and adjust those macros, specifically the carbs, and then see how your body is going to react to that. Are we going to see a change in body comp? Are we going to see a change in strength or RP output? Are we going to see a drop in weight, increase in weight? I don't know. We got to find out. So again, it's the first like month to 6 weeks. It's really about figuring out how all of these adjustments are going to impact the way that, one, you perform in the gym, and two, if your goal is to cut weight, how your body is reacting to the adjustments to that nutrition. Are we seeing, a maintenance? Or are we seeing a decrease in weight? Or are we seeing an increase in weight? All of those things are going to get taken into account as to how I'm going to plan for you long term. Now that we have about 6 weeks worth of data and information on how this athlete is reacting to the nutrition protocols, we are now going to start to kind of dip our toe into the cheat meal waters. We're not diving head first just yet. We're just kind of sticking our toe in there. So after about 6 weeks, I'm going to introduce a refeed meal. So Refeed meals and cheat meals are often used interchangeably. However, I look at them as two very different things. A refeed meal, especially if you have been at a caloric deficit for a significant amount of time, so we'll call it 6 weeks. If you've been at a caloric deficit for about 6 weeks, typically the metabolism is going to start to slow down, right? Because it doesn't have enough fuel for the fire to keep going. So introducing a refeed meal is going to be the same type of nutrient dense foods that the athlete has been eating over the course of that 6 weeks. We're just going to have a significant increase in the portion sizes. So the macro count is going to go up, the calorie count is going to go up. However, we're not introducing anything new in terms of types of food. And then from there, we're going to see how the athlete's body is going to react to that. So honestly, men are a little bit easier to predict when we do this than women. However, I could spend an entire video talking about that. But typically, I can predict what's going to happen with a man and be damn near spot on. With a woman, it's a little bit more questionable. But anyways, so typically what I'm going to see in a lot of athletes is a weight drop. And again, it's because once you've been at a caloric deficit for a significant period of time, if you think of your metabolism as a fire, when you start to poke the fire, when you add a little bit of fuel to the fire, it's going to get more intense. It's the same thing with your metabolism. As you start to reduce the fuel source, in this case calories, that fire is going to start to slow down. And then once you poke it and prod it and add a little bit of fuel to it in the form of a free meal or a refeed meal, it's going to start to fire up again, right? And you're going to see a pretty significant drop in weight just after that one particular day. Now that we know the result of the refeed meal, now what we need to do is recreate those same conditions and get that same result, just like any good science experiment. You can make it happen once, but can you repeat the result? So we'll go through that process for one more week typically. And then depending on, how the results go, then we're going to start to incorporate a cheat meal. So with a cheat meal, again, the difference between a refeed and a cheat meal, refeed is increasing calories in the same types of foods that the athlete's been eating. A cheat meal is higher calories and kind of whatever they want. Sometimes I'll be very specific with the cheat meal, but generally speaking, it's just kind of whatever you want. I highly discourage alcohol, however, but any types of foods or other beverages is fine. So what I'm more concerned with after the cheat meal is not necessarily the effects on the athlete's weight, but more the effects on their performance in the gym. So like for me, for example, after I have a cheat meal, I'm not going to work out after that. And I'm probably not going to train the next day. It typically makes me like sluggish. And it decreases my energy. So I do much better when I have really good quality nutrient dense foods in me to train. So if I have a cheat meal, it's typically after a really intense training session, and then it's a rest day the next day. And typically that's kind of counterintuitive because a lot of people are going to utilize that excess energy and put it towards the gym. That doesn't really work well for me. Like I don't get a good training session in. So I still get the benefits of like kickstarting the metabolism and all those other things that we talked about. It just doesn't work for me to go right back into the weight room and train. So I do want to see what the effects are going to be on that athlete as it relates to their performance in the gym after the cheat meal. So why is the performance in the gym after a cheat meal going to be important, and why do we need to know that information? 2 reasons. The first reason is during an athlete's meet prep process, we do not want to sacrifice any good quality gym time. Okay, we don't want to add in variables that we know are going to affect a lifter's training session, because over the course of the 12 to 16 week prep, that training and the nutrition needs to be so laser focused on the end goal, which is going to be the powerlifting meet, that we don't have any room to throw in variables that we know are not going to benefit the athlete. So if their performance does really well on that cheat meal, I might keep that in their program. If their performance suffers because of the cheat meal, I'm probably going to keep the refeed as a way to, get those additional calories into the lifter, and then also help to manage the weight a little bit better. The second reason, it's also going to let me know what that athlete needs to eat the day before the meet. So again, going back to, me as the reference, I don't lift well after having a cheat meal. So when I compete, I do not have a cheat meal after my weigh-in the day before the meet. There's no way, because I am not going to feel at my best the next day when I go to compete. I will, however, have a refeed meal. So eating those same really good quality foods just in a larger quantity. So if the athlete does not respond well as far as their performance goes from a cheat meal, I'm going to put them on a refeed meal after their weigh-in before their competition. Now that I've taken you through the nutrition process that I do with a new athlete, and it's specifically setting them up for their prep for the competition, I can answer the original question, which was how often should a competitive powerlifter have a cheat meal, a little bit more specifically. And it's not going to be until about 7 or 8 weeks into me working with you. And then, depending on how your body is going to react to that meal and how you are going to perform in the gym after, is going to be dependent on whether or not we're going to hold on to them or if we're just going to stick with a refeed meal. So, I'm speaking, this entire conversation has been specifically about athletes that are going into prep. Now, when athletes are not in prep and in that off season, you still want to manage those cheat meals. You don't want to go crazy. I always like my athletes to stay in that competitive mindset and maintain those same habits that they have during prep outside of prep. However, we can be a little bit more lax with it and maybe do a once a week cheat meal or once every 2 weeks cheat meal. Again, that's just going to be dependent on the person. So however, it's still really important to make sure that you stick within some type of structure. Otherwise, it's going to make that prep process so much harder because you have to unlearn all of those poor habits that you acquired over the course of your off season. And so much progress is made in the off season. And I don't think that people realize that, but it's actually a really valuable time. And it's how you can build a lot of strength for that next prep season. So you still want to have that athlete's mindset as it relates to your nutrition and think of food as fuel. However, again, within that off season, you don't necessarily have to be quite as strict. Now, again, I am having this conversation strictly from a strength athlete's perspective. This has nothing to do with weight loss. This has nothing to do with body comp. This has nothing to do with transformations. All of those conversations are going to look a little bit different. However, just speaking solely to performance in the gym, depending on the individual, obviously there's going to be some variance, but in the grand scheme of things, those cheat meals are going to be very strategically planned in and tested quite often, especially as your body starts to change. If you enjoyed today's video, please like and subscribe. And in the notes of this video, I did include a link for my most recent guide that you can download for free, Performance Nutrition for Strength Athletes. So go ahead and click the link below, download that, and I will see you on the next one.